Hey guys, this is Clint from Jeff from UnleashThePhones.com, and what we have in for review today is the Google Nexus 4. The Nexus 4 is made by LG, unlike previous Nexus devices that were made by Samsung and HTC. It runs Android 4.2 Jelly Bean, which brings a lot of nice new things that we'll talk about later on. There's also a quad-core processor powering all of this, and as you can see, there's a 4.8-inch IPS display. All of this for $300 in the US means it's pretty cheap. All of that with a great design as well. It looks a lot better than previous Nexus phones thanks to the little backplating that you can see right over there. It's also very premium feeling, and there's Gorilla Glass on the back and on the front, though you can tell that it does catch fingerprints a little easily, unfortunately, but you can always clean it out a little bit. So it is a little hard to hold, but there is minimal bezel, as you can see, so it's not too bad. It's easier to hold than the Galaxy Note, for example. And like I said, the back is actually the coolest part about the design, because it has a little kind of sparkly effect on it that looks really cool in person. And it does look similar to LG's Optimus G, but it does look distinctive enough that you'd want to look at this device in more detail when you get your hands on it. Yeah, the glass does mean it is a little bit slippery to hold, so you will want to make sure that you get a case for it maybe, but the design is really beautiful and it looks really premium overall. So to talk a little bit about the display, you have a 4.7-inch WXJ HD True IPS LCD display, and it looks beautiful. It's at about 768 by 1280 pixels. So compared to the 1080p displays that are out there nowadays, it might not look that great, but as you can see, details are actually very clear, and everything does look pretty crisp as well. Of course, you might notice some artifacts on the camera, but that is, trust me, the camera's fault. It does look really nice up close, and yeah, it's a great display. It's sharp and clear, and there's a zero gap technology used, so everything looks a lot more clearer than on previous Nexus devices. Color tones, as you can see, look a little bit more neutral compared to the saturated displays, saturated colors on AMOLED displays. But viewing angles are also quite nice, and no complaints as such. It really is quite a good looking display. Alright, so just to give you a quick tour of the hardware, at the top right here you have the front-facing 1.3 megapixel camera that can also take 720p video. You also have the centrally located earpiece right there. At the side you have a whole bunch of buttons, like over here you have the volume keys and the slot for the micro SIM card. On this side you have the lock key, which locks the screen and makes it look very minimalistic, as you can see. The buttons work fine, so no complaints as such. Right over here you have the 3.5mm audio jack and a little pinhole for the noise cancelling microphone, and at the bottom you have the micro USB port. It's also used to charge the device, and another pinhole for the standard microphone. Now at the back, which is probably my most favorite part of this device, you have the nice little Nexus branding right over there and the 8 megapixel camera with a single LED flash. The 8 megapixel camera actually does a pretty okay job, but we'll talk more about that later on. But you can record 1080p video with it, so that's kind of interesting. You also have the little LG branding over there as well. And at the corner you have the little loudspeaker that you might notice that does an okay job as well. And underneath this you have the 2100 mAh battery, which you can't access unfortunately because it's a non-removable battery. You also have no micro SD card slot, but you do get the Nexus 4 in 8GB or 16GB versions, which is all the memory you'll have. Talking a little bit about the vanilla Android 4.2 Jelly Bean experience that you have with the Nexus 4. It's the same UI as Jelly Bean 4.1, but you do get a couple new features and a couple new widgets as such, and the look is more or less the same. Everything looks clean and minimal. It really does look quite nice, and you also have Google Now, which you can just use by swiping up on the little home button right there. And you also have a couple of new transitions wherein you can open an app and you'll see it minimize and maximize right there. So there are a couple of subtle hints here and there, but there's also a couple of new features like the notification panel, which you will see right here, which gives you quick access to everything that you can change right from the notification drawer. So it is nice to have right there. There's also a new lock screen widget feature, which I'm going to talk a little bit about. The lock screen widget feature, I don't know, it's not my favorite thing, but it is cool to have, I guess. All you have to do is swipe left from the bezel. If you swipe right, you will open up the camera UI, but if you swipe left, you will get UI for your various lock screen widgets. And of course you can add more as they go on just by tapping on it and adding whatever widget you'd want. I guess it is easy enough and useful enough. So far there aren't any really practical widgets that I really want on that screen, but it is pretty cool to have. Just to quickly show you another cool new feature, there's something called Daydream, wherein if you charge the device you can have a cool little animation playing on the screen, or if you put it on a dock, for example, you can have a clock displayed or various colors or currents, Google Currents, or a photo frame, and you can also tell it when to daydream, like while docked or while charging, or either of the two. And just to show you a demo of how it looks, this is what it does. So yeah, pretty cool, like little screensaver thing. Alright, now powering all of this, you have a Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 processor that's quad core clocked at 1.5 gigahertz. You also have an Adreno 320 GPU and 2 GB of RAM, which means everything, as you can see, is pretty fast to use. Everything's very responsive, and it is really fast overall. We have a couple benchmark scores over on the blog that you can also check out. So no complaints as such. Just to quickly show you the messaging UI, the keyboard is more or less exactly the same as on Jelly Bean, but now there's a nice little swipe UI that you can use, which does do the job pretty well. It is very easy to type, so no complaints as such, and the keyboard is well spaced. All the keys are well spaced, that is, and it's easy enough to reach all corners of the keyboard. Coming up to internet browsing, you have the default Chrome browser available as the only browser on Android Jelly Bean. You also have no 4G, unfortunately, so if you want 4G that bad, unfortunately the Nexus 4 doesn't have that. But everything loads up really fast, as you can see, and I really like Chrome because it has a whole bunch of functionality and features. I can also sync with your Google account, and it gives you all the functionality that you want. Moving on, I can also show you a little bit about the music player, but I haven't actually transferred any tracks to it yet. You have the normal Google Music or Google Play app, which can play all your music. You also have a couple of equalizer settings and a nice little album art view as such. The gallery is tweaked a little bit. It still pulls in all of your albums from your Google account, but it also has a very cool little tweaked UI where you can tap and then use onboard filters or edit it right from there, and you also have the same old share settings as before. So that is very cool to see because it does add a little bit more functionality out of the box itself if you really want to edit your pictures, or you could just install Instagram for basic editing, I guess. Also, to talk a little bit about video, you have support for 1080p videos, but you don't have support for XVID or DivX formats, unfortunately. But if you do encode them into MPEG, you can play them up to 1080p, which is kind of nice, and it does look very nice on this display because the display really is gorgeous. But the lack of DivX support is a little bit annoying, but I'm sure there is a couple of apps like VLC that you can download from the Google Play Store. Loudspeaker quality is okay. It is averagely loud, but it does tend to crackle at high volume, so you'll want to be careful. Alright, I'm moving on to my favorite part of the Nexus 4, the camera. The camera quality isn't that great. It's pretty average and it's good enough outdoors. You get a good amount of detail and colors, though colors do look a little colder indoors, and there's a lot of noise as well. But what's very cool about the camera app is the new UI. As you can see, it is very minimalistic, and you can just hold and choose what you'd want to right from the screen itself. So that is really cool and really quick as well, and you also get the settings right there and choose what you'd want. So that's quite nice as well, and you can also tap over here to go to the video mode. Video quality is also pretty good. Well, not good, but okay. It is a little disappointing, and you do see a lot of artifacting in the video results, but the UI again is just as easy to configure and use. So definitely a fan of the whole UI. There's also a panorama mode and a new photosphere mode that we'll talk a little bit about more, wherein you can take 3D panoramas and they look really cool. You can check out more about this over on the blog, because that is a long article. Apart from that, call quality is pretty okay. Thanks to noise cancellation, voices came in loud and clear. Again, like I said, the loudspeaker does crackle a little bit, so you want to be careful with the loudspeaker. Moving on to the battery life. Battery life is also pretty okay. It's average battery life by today's standards. You won't really get much out of it if you're a power user. You will still have to charge it at the end of every day, but yeah, pretty much what you'd expect in this day and age. So yeah, just to conclude, the Nexus 4 might not be the perfect phone, mostly because of its camera, but it does bring enough functionality to make it really tempting. This is by far my favorite Android device of the year, just because of the functionality it brings in. While the camera is disappointing, you have really premium build quality, and it is a really nice design that's unique enough that it'll catch eyes around you. You also have great hardware under the hood as well, and a really nice display that's clear enough and responsive enough, thanks to all the quad-core processor things going on underneath. And the best part about Android, about a Nexus device though, is that you get timely Android updates as well, without having to wait or question whether the manufacturer will release it. So yeah, it's a great offering for $300. I think it's really worth it. But hey, you know, if you want a detailed overview, do check out our detailed review over on unleashthephones.com. And thanks for watching, guys.